Hi everyone, this is Nikki. I'm so glad to have you here on the channel. And I am going to show you an easy card today. It is so easy and it really does not require a whole lot of supplies. We're going to do some really easy, probably the easiest ink blending you've ever done. And then we're going to add some amazing details with embossing powder. We're going to start with an embossing folder. This one is called Cupped Blossoms and it's from Altenew. And each embossing folder has different sides. So we're going to kind of look at which side we press into the paper because that will make this technique so much easier. So with any embossing folder, you can use the side that presses into the paper or the side that puffs the paper up. Most of the time when I'm doing an embossing folder card, I'm using the side that will bring the image up. But for this technique, we want to press the image into the paper. So just make sure when you're using your embossing folder that you have it how you want it situated so that the image is pressing in. So the raised part needs to press down into the paper, and that's the side we're going to use. Now, I'm not sending it through the die cutting machine to emboss the image just yet. I'm kind of using the embossing folder to give me an idea of where the placement of my colors is going to be on this piece of paper. And this is going to be very loose, we're going to go outside the lines, but we're just kind of giving it a quick and easy once over with some color. And these colors that I've picked, which I'll pop up on the screen, are going to match the embossing powder that we're using. You're going to be using the citrus quad, and it has a red, a yellow, an orange, and a green in it. So see how I'm placing the embossing folder just to make sure that I get enough color down. I'm looking at the flowers through this, and I'm adding peppermint scrub, which is a little darker than rouge in some certain areas, just to give it a little bit of variation. But I'm trying to cover the main flower in red, and I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just getting some color down and changing the variation in that color ever so slightly. Then I look again and see, ooh, I need to add just a little bit more. This takes up a large portion of this sheet, so I want to make sure that I've got it all covered. And you can see the center of my the center of my ink blending is a little lighter than the outside, and I'm going to kind of follow that pattern with the rest of the flowers. So for this main flower, I actually used 3 colors. So I'm going to take the darkest color, which is Merlot, and I'm just going to add it in random places here. I'm doing a little bit on the outside just to give more color variation. It really makes that final product just stand out because you just are amazed at all of the different colors and how awesome it looks. So I've got just a little bit of the Merlot added in. So we've used 3 colors, Rouge, Peppermint Scrub, and Merlot. Now this embossing folder has 2 other flowers, and we're going to do those in a more orangey color. I'm using ginger right now, and I'm kind of looking to see where those flowers go to make sure I get all of their petals. And it's very easy just to lay this over it and make sure you've got color in the right places. This is really needed when you're doing the greenery because the little leaves are a little bit smaller, so you really need to look on the greenery. For the third flower, I use Sauna, which is a little bit more yellow than the one that I used below. It's just slightly different. Like I said, I'm just trying to create some variation, and I'm holding this over to see how far I need my flower to go. Last, we're going to add some green, and I know this is kind of looking like a hot mess, but you are going to love how this turns out. I'm so excited. So I'm going to add some green. I'm looking at my folder to kind of see where the green goes. And once again, if you mess up, we're going to be ink swiping over this, so it's okay if you're not exact. Just do the best you can and make sure you got every area that's going to be covered fully inked. Now, here's how that final part looks. You've got to pay attention to your embossing folder. Remember, we need to press the image into the color. So we don't want it popping up out of the color. We want it going down in. So you're going to need the raised part of that embossing folder on the top of this. So look how I'm doing, and I'm going to check it a couple of times and make sure that I have it right, and then I'm going to line it up so that it looks best with those flowers so that my coloring kind of lines up like I was attempting to make it, and then we'll send it through this embossing folder, send that through the die cutting machine to make the impression. Here's how it turns out. Look at that. Yes, we're outside the lines, but no worries. We're going to cover this up, and I think you're going to be shocked at how this comes to life when we swipe a color over it. I'm going to use a blue because I love navy backgrounds, and I've never tried using blue before, and I'm going to say it turned out so amazing. Now, what I like about the blue, I'll show you in the final thing, but notice that I'm going over it multiple times, but I'm trying to make sure that I just hit the top portion of this. So you don't want to color in your whole image, but remember your image is um, like it's an impressed image. So I guess you would say like debossed down into there. And I'm going to color over it to try to catch all those details. It really makes the details pop up. And what I love about using the blue, you will see in the final product, it almost makes it look like, because the blue isn't quite as dark as using black, it makes the floral arrangement where we've gone outside the lines look like it's glowing. So let's look at it with the ink dry. Do you see what I mean around the edges of the greenery there? It actually just changes the color so that the top corner of that card looks like it's glowing. It also looks like there's a little shadow. It just gives it even more detail. For this part, I'm going to use the Wow embossing pen. So it's embossing ink in a pen. I am going to add some anti-static powder, and I'm going to do one section at a time because I have 4 different colors of embossing powder, and I'm going to use the coordinating colors. So on this orange flower, I'm going to use the orange embossing powder from the citrus, and it's a very sparkly, glittery powder. So I'm just kind of tracing some areas that I would like to be glitter. You can do this any way you want. I just wanted to get some of that glittery coordinating color down. So I just kind of followed this pattern and added to the orange areas. Then I added my embossing powder, and I'm going to use a little brush. If I get some on the navy or where it's not supposed to be orange, I'll use that little brush and wipe it off. And then I'm going to heat emboss each section by themselves because this has so much glitter in it. It was just easier working with the rest of the piece to go ahead and heat it. Now I'm going to continue adding embossing powder, heating each section. I love this red. Ah, so beautiful. So I'll do orange, red, yellow, and green. And then I'm going to show you the side-by-side comparison of this before we added embossing powder and after, so you can see how much of a drastic difference it makes. It's so awesome. Now, you want to make sure you don't get embossing powder on your blue background. So when you're doing the leaves especially, you may have to use a little paintbrush or something to brush that extra powder off because you want it to almost look like you have used navy paper here. Now, here's the comparison. The left was no embossing powder and the right is with embossing powder. Can you see the difference? There's just so much more detail on the right. I love it. What's left to do is to create a perfectly coordinated sentiment. So I just cut it out of white paper and I'm using that same blue ink and just making sure I've got it filled in. Now those little areas where I have white, where I'm going to zoom in for you. That's the edges of the white paper. And when you're doing a really dark card like this, you can just grab a little paintbrush, some of that ink, and kind of go in between the letters, and it will darken that. It'll just apply the ink to those areas if you want it to look like it is solid navy paper, which I really love that look. So once I got this colored in, I added a shadow of vellum, and then I'm going to apply it to the card, and I'll lift this up. I'm going to try to show you the sparkle. Sometimes it's so hard to catch all of the sparkle and detail on camera, but trust me, it is a very awesome sparkly card. So let me lift it up and just kind of show you. I don't know if you can tell how sparkly it is, but it's got flicks of glitter and those color places that are nice and embossed, and it just looks beautiful. Here's a super close image so you can kind of see how that gives detail and what it looks like. It's got glittery flecks, but it also has coordinating colors. So we've got red and orange and yellow and green. It's just awesome. I'll show you some final pics. I'm so glad that you stopped by, and make sure you check the description for the details of all of the things that I used. Here are some other videos that you may be interested in. Thanks so much for spending time with me here today. Make sure that you hit like and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye.